Hello, everyone, and I hope you're all doing well. My name is Tanner Dagenais, and I'm the host of Self-Sabotage Solutions. Today, I'm very grateful and thankful to be joined here by Beth Blackmore. Beth worked in the federal government of Canada. She ended up breaking free from the system during the whole COVID debacle. She is now a recovering public servant. She has an amazing weight loss story. I heard part of your story on Nathan's podcast. It was amazing. Where she lost 60 pounds, and I'm excited to hear more about that. And is now a self-sabotage coach, and she helps others overcome self-sabotage. And I'm sure she helps others lose weight and really take back their health. And I saw your before and after photos, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. So super excited to hear about that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tanner, for inviting me on your podcast. I love connecting with like minds, especially fellow self-sabotage coaches. Right. And you're doing great work. As we chatted just before we recorded, that you're doing great work in terms of speaking truth and getting those messages out there. So thanks for that work you're doing and for inviting me on. It's a great opportunity to connect with you.
Of course. Thank you so much. And so you're in Canada, where specifically?
I am in the hotspot of the nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario. So yes, I was a federal government employee for 17 years. My background is in HR. So I had a 20-year career, both in the private sector and in the public sector. And so, yeah, I ended up breaking free from the golden handcuffs. It was a year, May. And because I did not want to comply with the mandates. Mm-hmm. And so I was first placed on leave December of 2021. And I knew then that I was not going to be returning back to the federal government. So, as soon as Prime Minister Trudeau announced that they were going to have mandatory mandates in the federal government, I think that was August of 2021, I knew that I was not going to be working for the federal government as a public servant for too much longer. And so I woke up. So I haven't been awake too long. This has been a wild ride for me in terms of, what is going on in our world with the corruption, with COVID. So I was super scared when COVID first came about, in March 2020. I was super protective of my boys and wanting to keep them safe. I was cool with the lockdowns at first. We were taking public transportation to work downtown Ottawa. And, I didn't know what was coming. I was glued to the Johns Hopkins map, looking at all the cases coming over from China. And I was nervous. It was overwhelming. But there were a lot of red flags for me that went off, shortly after. And, a couple of them were if this is a novel virus, how do they have these tests in every corner of the world, to test people if this is a new virus? I think the timing of when they started testing people too, I was questioning. And I really dug in when I started seeing alternative information online. And it was July of 2020 that I was at the family cottage. I was watching this YouTube video of the America's frontline doctors who were on the steps of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. in their white lab coats. It was a news conference, a press conference, no media there, of course, but it's streaming live on YouTube. And they're talking about how, lockdowns are no good, masks are no good. There's protocols, to help with COVID with hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. And I thought, yeah, like for some reason, my intuition just thought these doctors are telling the truth. And I wanted to show my mom a couple hours later that specific video. And when I tried to pull it up on YouTube, that black screen that said this video has been removed due to violating community guidelines. Mm-hmm. And just, everything, these light bulbs went off for me. And I thought, on down the rabbit hole I went, really. I had never experienced censorship like that. I had heard of the word censorship, obviously, but never experienced that personally. And I do really think that this awakening for me, for anyone, is really a personal journey. And, as much as we're vocal about what is going on in the world, I feel like you can't tell someone I'm sure you can plant seeds
Mhm.
and you can spread truth as much as you want, but I really feel until someone experiences something personally that you can't tell them. They really have to go through that themselves. So yeah, for I guess about almost a year and a half after I woke up from my propaganda induced mind, I was working for the federal government. I was working in HR as the team leader of recruitment. It was an acting physician. And our team ended up being responsible for having the responsibility to put in the new terms and conditions of employment with the mandates. So we were responsible for putting it in the offer letters and the job posters. And I had been very quiet about my opinion at work. I was, concentrating on my job and wanting to do a good job, and knowing that there's this kind of hot dumpster fire going on in the world, outside of work. But I was very focused on my position and on what I was doing. And I think it's because I knew my fate. I knew that I was likely, not going to be returning to government after they put me on leave. And I didn't want any part of it, to be honest. I did not want any part of it. There's lots of propaganda that we're exposed to in the media with public health. And there was also, if as a federal government employee, you were getting that constantly from your leadership team. The COVID task force would be telling us, our CFO would be telling us, these vaccines are safe and effective. Go get your vaccine. And too many red flags went off for me, and I didn't want to be a part of it. I didn't want to be a part of this system that is corrupt.
Mhm. Yeah, so corrupt. And that's awesome that you were able to see those red flags and, avoid getting the vaccine, because that definitely is yeah, it's a sad situation going on. But like we were talking about before, like I think COVID was a great thing that came about in some ways, because it got a lot of people to become more aware of what is actually going on, because these things have been going on even before COVID, right? It's just now it's just much easier to see after what went on.
Definitely. And,
Mhm.
you know, it's intense, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I feel, you can look at COVID. You can't look at COVID in isolation. Sure, a lot of people say there's red flags. Yeah, that seems weird, or, yeah, I don't know about that. But they don't really dig in and ask, well, why? And peel off those onion layers,
Mhm.
because it really only makes sense when you look at the whole picture. And
Yeah.
I mean the whole grand scale of what is going on in the world, and how we are manipulated with constant repetitive propaganda,
Mhm.
and how they've conditioned our minds. And a lot of people, I get that a lot of people struggle with that. They think, well, why? Why would they do that? So if that's all true, why would our world rulers want to do that and enslave us? We just we can't even fathom what goes on in their evil minds.
Mhm.
That's not for us to understand, but we need to be aware of it so that we can empower ourselves and find solutions outside of the system to be sovereign beings. I think that is really, I think, what the awake community needs to do is, a lot of people get super overwhelmed with the truth, and then it's like, but there's so many things that you can be doing to empower yourself and make a difference. And I think it really starts with yourself. You don't have any control over anyone but yourself. um, and as we can go into with my health journey, I really do think that health is foundational, and it's about empowering yourself first and foremost.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I know like the beginning of my journey, well, started with the pyramids, but then I went into started following Paul Chek, and I got like, got my health on track, and that was a major change in my life. So um I totally agree. And like once you start to realize, like, it's not just COVID, it's not just the food system, right? It's not just the government, because everyone knows the government's corrupt on some level, the
Mhm.
politics and everything like that. Then you start to like, okay, so the food system, okay, so the pharmaceutical system, right? The healthcare system, the educational system, like it's all like you said, you have to look at the big picture. and to see like, well, it's not just one thing. Like they're not just like, oh yeah, we're just going to start poisoning people out of nowhere. Like it's been happening for a while. Like,
Yes. Yeah.
um, mm,
And as you were saying, yeah, I think it's a blessing. I feel it's a blessing for me
yeah,
that I was able to see through COVID. And it's opened my eyes to, all the other things that have gone on. So I know that there have been major trials and tribulations for people during COVID. But again, I feel we're at this place where we can be conscious, be aware, educate ourselves, be open-minded, and start to come up with solutions and options for a way forward. Because once you're awake, I mean, you just can't go back to sleep. And I think a lot of people, I think they recognize something is wrong,
oh yeah,
but it's just too overwhelming for them to uncover it all and unravel it all, because then that means that their whole reality, their whole existence is really built on lies. And that's what it is, as I mean, that's what it is.
yeah. No, I completely agree. It is really lies. Like it's a whole matrix. Like I did a whole podcast episode about like how it's like a system of control, right? It's meant to keep it in play by just the people who don't know what's going on, attacking you, calling you an anti-vaxxer, saying you're killing grandma, doing all the things, and then like it's keeping the system in play. But I mean, it definitely there was a big awakening. There's a lot more people who are just aware, like they're starting to question what's going on. They're like, yeah, no way, I'm not gonna listen to you guys. You guys just try to force all this stuff down our throats. And now it's coming out that it's not even safe or effective. It's and yeah, it is definitely it can be hard to take in, right? I think we all had that period where we're just like, is this really the world? Like we're living in this world. Like it's scary. Like it can be, you know.
Totally. It's
Mhm.
super overwhelming. And the other thing I think about waking up, and it's an individual process, it's also an individual grieving process.
Oh yeah.
How many mornings would I wake up and think, is this really reality? Is this really the world we're living in? And, I felt super, super alone, super alone. And, even people that I thought I could have conversations with or open up
Mhm.
about it with, we're not there. We're not there. And so I've talked about, my naturopath at the time that had known for 22 years. And because I've always respected alternative medicine,
Mhm.
and really not a huge traditional medical fan, I guess you could say. I've always had a family doctor, but I loved the approach that my naturopath had. And so when I started waking up, that summer fall timeframe in 2020, and trying to have a virtual conversation with my naturopath, because of course she wasn't seeing anyone in person. And I remember breaking down, and just because I was waking up, I was waking up to the realities of the world, and she wasn't really there with me. And I was dumbfounded. I was shocked. I thought, of all the people in my life, um, I thought maybe she would be awake to this, and she wasn't. And I thought, well, why me? I really thought, why me? How have I kind of figured this out, knowing in my intuition? And it's not even that I needed um, uh, validation from others, but I really questioned, how could I get to this place where I'm thinking the world is the reality that we know it to be, and others are not there? And it's super, I mean, it's still in this time, I can't understand how people can't see. It's so deliberate now. The dots are practically touching each other and they're not connecting the dots.
Yeah. It's definitely very interesting. It's definitely a good question, right? Like, I think it goes back to just, I think how deep maybe our programming goes, maybe how we were raised. I think a lot of different factors. I think it really does. Maybe how sedated we are going through life.
Yes, I totally agree.
Mhm.
And I will say that, while I've wanted to get to the root cause of, some of my ailments in the past, like I've suffered from migraine headaches, and I never wanted to take the prescription drugs that my medical doctor had given me, and I never did. I've always wanted to get to the root cause and question why, question the status quo. But not wanting to ruffle feathers. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I've gone along to get along kind of thing. But there was always questions in the back of my mind. And I think you're right. I think it does come down to how much programming, how much distraction and sedation, we've been exposed to, and definitely toxins and poisons that we've consumed, with our diet. So I really attribute my awakening to the fact that I got healthy a year before COVID came along. So that health journey started March of 2019. So that's just over 4 years ago. And a year before COVID came along. And, as Jason, our self-sabotage coach and mentor, has said, health is foundation, and it's foundational. And, so much of our diet and the processed foods are poisoned, and they are toxic food that we are ingesting that is impairing our brain function. And people need to really, really understand that even though it is so repeated, and the content, the messaging, the advertising, it's everywhere, right? We all know the fast food joints, the big name brands on this grocery store shelves, because they're household names. I mean, we're constantly getting bombarded by it with the TV and, other forms of advertisement. And it's just, we really need to get back to basics and recognize that our health is really fundamental in terms of clarity of mind. I really believe that. And I attribute my health journey to seeing through COVID.
Yeah, I completely agree, because most people think about, I can lose or gain weight with eating healthy, but they don't think about like the mental aspect or even the spiritual aspect of it, right?
Yes.
Raising your frequency, your vibration, and your pineal gland, decalcifying your pineal gland, and getting all the fluoride out of your system. So yeah, I'm super excited to hear what your weight loss journey was. Like, where did you start? Where did you get the information from?
Sure. Yeah. So I think my body had been, well, obviously, I think my body had been telling me this for years. Like many of our symptoms that we just pass along as, oh, they have headaches, tired, I'm run down, I'm bloated. These are all kind of common ailments that we experience, and they're totally normalized. And there's a pill for that, and you can take Advil for that, and so take some I don't know, Pepto-Bismol or something for heartburn or whatever. I don't know. Or I guess that's stomach. But it's just so normalized that we feel like shit. And I definitely had symptoms leading up, for years. One of them happened to be weight gain. It was just a steady, gaining of weight over quite a few years. But starting in, I would say, beginning of 2019, so January, February of 2019, I was really starting to get concerned about symptoms I was experiencing. And so those symptoms were, definitely tired and bloated, exhausted, overwhelm, burnout. And, yeah, sure. I was a busy mom. I had a full-time career, out to competitive hockey with my son. And I mean, it was a rat race, right? It's a rat race. And so I was, I think, attributing it, a lot of that exhaustion and burnout, to just, trying to be a good mom and a great professional at work too. And so, but anyway, I had skin irritation, eye irritation. I had, really poor sleep. I had high blood pressure, which was super concerning for me. And, the headaches and that kind of thing were really ramping up. And so I wasn't concerned as much about my weight. It wasn't that I thought, I need to lose weight, I need to go on a diet, I need to, it wasn't about the vanity. It wasn't about wanting to lose weight. That wasn't a priority. I was concerned about these physical symptoms that seemed to be getting worse and worse. And so I was doing a lot of research. It's funny because I think about it and I'm like, I didn't go to my doctor to talk about it. I didn't even go to my naturopath about it. It was something inside me that thought, I need to investigate this for myself. And so I kept being led to websites and information regarding insulin resistance because of the symptoms that I was having. And I then, light bulbs started going off that, okay, so these symptoms are actually because of what I'm eating. I never put that together. I'd never heard of insulin resistance. I didn't, understand the physiology of, insulin resistance and what it could do to a body, and that my diet, which I didn't think was so bad. I think it was the standard Canadian, North American diet, that everyone's eating like this, and who has time to, eat any differently. And, you kind of, you normalize it. You justify it because you think, well, everyone's eating like this. It's got to be normal. It can't be harmful.
Mm-hmm.
But when I really started to dig in, do the research, and realize that this was going to be a massive lifestyle overhaul, and I just did it. I think it was March 6th. I don't know if it was March 16th or March 17th, but that was the day that I ditched all my food. I planned in terms of what I was going to be eating, what I was going to be feeding my family, making sure to have healthy snacks on hand. And, within a couple of weeks, I think even shorter than that, I knew that I was starting to feel better. I had lost a lot of the water retention, the swelling in my ankles and in my wrists. I didn't own a scale at the time, so I wasn't tied to the scale, but I could feel better. I felt that I wasn't as bloated. I felt the weight coming off, and I honestly just felt better. And the other thing that came about was this sense of empowerment. I thought, oh my gosh, so if I'm eating, this food, healthy food, this is transforming me, in terms of my, ditching or getting rid of the poor physical symptoms that I was having. And, I was losing weight. It was almost like, honestly, losing weight was a byproduct of eating healthy, because that wasn't my focus. That really wasn't what I was set out to do. I was really just concerned about the physical symptoms. And so that was March of 2019. In June of 2019, I went to my medical doctor's office and I wanted her to weigh me. She had weighed me in January of 2019. I didn't want to know how much I weighed at the time. I didn't ask her, but I knew that they had put it down in their file. So when I went in June, I realized I was 198 pounds in January. And I had lost 25 pounds since I had started my health journey of March 2019 until when I saw her in June. And she was actually a little bit taken aback. She says, okay, but you're doing this deliberately and healthily. Like, she was concerned that I had lost 25 pounds. And I'm like, yeah, I was pushing 200 pounds. What are you questioning here? And I said, yes, I'm eating healthy food. I'm eating, vegetables. I'm eating protein. I'm eating healthy fats. And so that was kind of funny that she was taken aback by it. And probably because she doesn't probably see a lot of success stories out there either, but anyway, that really propelled me to keep going. I felt amazing. I felt like, yes, I can keep going. It was a lifestyle change. It was just, and now, 4 years later, I just feel like I totally have a grasp and I totally have control over my health. Because I'm controlling it. I know what I need to put in my body to feel better and to feel good. And, I'm learning constantly still, so just recently, for instance, I started lifting heavy weight, and that's new to me, and throughout that whole entire, so it was about a year and a half that I had lost 60 pounds starting in 2019. And I was not exercising at all. I was just focused on my nutrition. I'm still busy at work, still a busy mom. COVID comes along. And I just focused on the nutrition. I thought, yeah, exercise, I know that there's benefits for that, but really I was focused on what I was consuming. And so it just goes to show that, what we are putting in our body really can have a massive effect on our overall health, our well-being, the weight loss, so, if people are thinking, well, it's just too much in terms of, focusing on the exercise, focusing on the diet and having that whole overhaul, I am living proof that it doesn't have to be super overwhelming. You don't have to do everything at once.
Yep.
I definitely think what you're taking in is priority. And, everyone's different. I'm not going to say that certain diets are better than others, but definitely I'll say that whole foods is where it's at. So
yeah.
you're just ditching the refined carbs, the refined grains, the ultra processed foods, the sugars, all those bad seed oils and vegetable oils. I mean, it's really about getting back to basics. Really about getting back to basics.
Yep, I completely agree with that, and I love that story. And you're totally right. Right, it's about progression, not perfection. You don't have to do everything like, oh, now I know all this stuff. I have to do everything all at once, right? And then that's where you get the most self-sabotage occurring, when you do all those changes at once.
Exactly, because it's
Yep.
overwhelming. It's not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so taking little bits and baby steps is so important, because I think you're hitting those checks, you're getting those check marks, and you can see the progress just in what you're doing. So it doesn't have to be a whole massive overhaul. And I think that's where people get really overwhelmed. And I always had a gym membership, but I wasn't always consistent about going. But even when I did go, when I was 60 pounds heavier, I mean, it's not like I was doing a whole heck of a lot, obviously. So I really do think that food and nutrition is priority, nutrient dense foods. And exercise has so many other benefits, of course. So I'm not saying it doesn't. And I'm, for the past 9 months, I've really been consistent about my workout routine, going to the gym regularly, at least twice a week. And now I'm starting with heavy lifting, because I think it's important for especially women my age that are losing muscle. So I feel like this is my next big challenge. This is what, if I want to keep improving and keep learning, keeping an open mind, I think it's super important to keep going.
Yep. That's so great. Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, the food is so important, because it's not only about like what you're putting into your body, it's also what you're getting out of your body when you're cutting out those, those toxic foods, all the pesticides, all the herbicides, all the fungicides, all the chemical additives, like the food dyes, like all that stuff. It's just it does take a toll on your body. And where do those toxins get stored in? Your fat cells, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And the liver, I think,
Yep.
too.
So did you do any processes to like detox as well when you were doing that?
I
Or
mean,
just naturally detox?
I think it was a natural detox. Yeah, it wasn't that. I mean, I was conscious about what I was eating, and
Right.
especially not consuming those ultra processed foods. I think, yeah, just in terms of what I was consuming, it was this natural detox. And the motivation for me was just feeling so much better. So yes, I was losing weight, but it was really about my whole system feeling better. And my body was thanking me for making this massive change. And I just think, all those years that I would stuff down my feelings, stuff my emotions down with food. I mean, I really think that played a huge part. So, we're conditioned to think that the North American standard diet is normal. We're programmed to think that, and we don't know how good we can feel when we ditch that shit. We really don't know. And so that was huge motivation for me, that I was able to really feel better, and my body, was telling me, keep going. It was really, really profound. And the other thing that now keeps me motivated, not just with the weight loss, feeling better, but the fact that now I know that I'm awake, that our rulers want us sick, dumb, and weak. So, I mean, the most empowering thing we can do is get healthy, is empower ourselves to get healthy, have a strong, healthy body, so that we can, like, honestly fight this system. Because when we are poisoned and toxined, and it's easier for them to control us. We're dependent on pharma. We're dependent on the government.
Yep.
It's really about empowering ourselves so that we're not kind of living as slaves in their system. And the first thing is getting healthy.
I completely agree with that. And I love how you also like added, like, did the same like change for your family. So curious, like I know you said you had a son who plays hockey. I was a big hockey player as well.
Yeah.
Did you like notice changes in your family as well with the health changes?
Totally,
Mm-hmm.
totally. And so, yeah, I mean, I always, I'm constantly bringing in healthy food. So they've changed their diet too. I mean, so I have a 13, he'll be 14 soon, and I have a 21-year-old. And, um, I find it's hard because they socialize, they're with their friends a lot.
Oh yeah.
And so I know that, they're eating bullshit foods some of the times, but the
Mm-hmm.
majority of food that I bring into the house, I'm ensuring that is healthy. And so, their breakfast and their lunch and their dinners, as long as they're home or they're packing their lunch, are healthier options for sure. And they appreciate a good home cooked meal.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes when, we're tempted and have, takeout, and we try to have the healthy choices. I mean, it's never satisfying.
Yeah.
It's never as good as your home
Mm-hmm.
cooked meals, you know? And I think it's not that they're spoiled now. I really think that they value and appreciate home cooked meals, and I love cooking.
Yeah, not only that, I feel like you can taste the difference once you actually have actual food, right? Like I know a
Yes.
couple times, like I was on the road, I had to eat someplace like that, like Chick-fil-A or whatever it may be, and I was like, oh, like my stomach just felt off. I was just like, that did not taste very good. It was kind of greasy, and I was just like, why did I eat that stuff like back in the day?
Isn't it amazing? It's so
Yeah.
amazing, especially, yeah, when I say like it's motivating to stay on track. I mean, it really is. Your body is really trying to tell you that that is toxic food. Like you just feel like shit
Yeah.
right after. You really do. And so, sometimes, and so, we have these short-term cravings and short-term temptations. But I mean, if we can think long term, I think that's also, an issue with society and programming and our conditioning, that we are not these long-term thinkers. It's all about instant gratification. It's all about cravings and the now and the temptations. And so I really think people need to adult up and think about, their long-term goals, and not just kind of satisfying their short-term cravings. And that comes, with fast food and the convenience. We're in this 9 to 5 kind of rat race
Yeah.
that is really deliberate, right? It's controlled. And that's, they want us buying into the bullshit food and the propaganda. So
Yeah, I
it's
completely
all
agree
part
with
of the
that.
plan.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And that short-term thinking, right? That's like major form of self-sabotage, like where a lot of self-sabotage comes from. And you're right, it's just programmed into us.
Yeah.
And part of like what you're putting into your body, right, is the caffeine, which I know you know all about as well, like just how much that increases, your short-term thinking and your self-sabotage. So were you, being as you worked in the government, like an office setting, I'm sure you probably were exposed to a lot of caffeine, coffee. What was your experience with that? Did you quit that?
I did. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so first I have to share, when I was in private sector, I worked in high tech, and the company had free coffee, free tea, free hot chocolate, I think, um, on every floor. And then, yes, working in a government job, I became a coffee snob. I would
Mm-hmm.
say, I went from like Tim Hortons, you may not know in the States, but Tim Hortons is a big coffee chain in Canada. So, when I first started drinking coffee, that's what I would have, a double double. So, 2 creams, 2 sugars. That was way back. And then my taste buds changed, and I really loved a bold, dark coffee. We would have, fresh roasted beans. We had a French press, and I would just have one coffee a day. I mean, it was a fairly big coffee that I would have in the morning. And I used to love it. I used to love that routine of getting to my desk and having my coffee, and then it's all downhill from there. But I used to really enjoy that time. And so after I was put on leave, and that was
Mm-hmm.
December, I think I shared that. I discovered Jason Christoff, in terms of, I had known about him before, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know he provided the coaching certification program. And I thought, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So going through that program, I really learned about the bad effects of coffee. And I thought, I don't even know what it's doing for me. Like, what is the benefit it's doing? Like, everyone says, oh, God, don't touch my cup of coffee. But if you were to if you were not to be dependent on coffee anymore, would you really miss it?
Mhm.
So I felt that was kind of that was the next step in my health journey. I had lost the weight. I was now awake. I was barely drinking alcohol. And that really came with no longer craving the sugars and the bullshit foods.
Mhm.
Alcohol. I used to love a full-bodied red wine, Cab Sauv, on the weekends, Friday nights. And I no longer crave that. And I thought, okay, well, what's next? Because I don't know if this coffee is really doing it for me. So it was February of last year, 2022, that I quit cold turkey. I had a couple of different options on hand, just in case things went awry in terms of, you know, cravings or
Mhm.
withdrawal symptoms and that kind of thing. But I just thought, I know it's going to be painful. I know it's going to be, they'll probably be out of commission for a couple of days and feeling like garbage. But I just knew that what to expect. And so, it probably took a couple of days to get over the worst of the symptoms. And then that was it. Yes, I love the smell of coffee. Yes, every now and then I'll have a sip of it, but it's not that I crave it. I no longer crave it. I no longer need it. And I think what's so great about that is it's kind of freeing that you don't need that to kickstart your day. You
Yeah.
don't need that. You don't need to kind of play like if you've got a busy day ahead and you're thinking, okay, I've got this, and this to do, but first I got to sit down and have a cup of coffee. I mean, it just seems kind of ridiculous when you think about it that you
Mhm.
need that to kind of propel yourself forward in the morning. And I just feel like you want to be independent of the dependents.
Mhm.
And if they, the elite rulers again, are pushing these things like coffee on every kind of corner in the city, coffee shops in every corner of the city, they're pushing that, they're normalizing it. It's in all the movies, it's in all the TV shows, it's on the anchor, the news anchor desks.
Yep.
Um, I just think red flags go off there. It's like, why are they pushing this so much? Why do we need it? Are
Mhm.
there really that many benefits to it? I don't think so. I don't think so. And in fact, I believe it's toxic and neurotoxin and let alone all the chemicals that they spray on the bean crops.
Mhm.
I just don't think that that is something that we need to consume as humans.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I work at a call center right now, and it's interesting hearing the coffee drinkers come in and saying like, "I just have to have my cup of coffee. Like, I'm not myself without my coffee." And I mean, it makes sense when they're saying that because when you hear or when you like understand like coffee actually like just one cup a day changes your whole brain function, right? So like they're really not themselves. Well, themselves when they're not drinking coffee because their brain has literally changed to be a different way, and when they're not drinking it, they're not running that same way. They don't have that flight or flight mode going, and um, so yeah, I mean, it's like one of the biggest drugs in the world, like that's just normalized and just used like daily, and no
Yeah.
one bats an eye if when it's used. No one bats an eye when people say, "I just gotta have my coffee." Like if someone said that about alcohol or cocaine, people are like, "What are you talking about?" Like you don't have to have your cocaine to to do like your work today,
Yes.
but like we people literally say that same thing about coffee, and it's a total red flag, and it's very interesting. Well, I was never really a big coffee drinker, but I was big into like the energy drinks and stuff like that. So when I cut that out of my life, and just Coca Colas and sodas and stuff like that. So once I cut that out of my life, I definitely noticed a big change.
That's
So that's
great.
awesome. You were able to cut that out of your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really does feel freeing, not to have these vices. I feel like, okay, what's next? What else? What else can how else can I improve myself?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's truly empowering.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, and you said you cut out alcohol too? Is that where you
I mean, I wouldn't go
partially?
that far,
Mhm.
but but very
Mhm.
little, and I don't have cravings. And to be honest, I think that's one thing. There's a couple things I need to work on.
Yep.
And that's one of them. I do think it's not that I go out a
Mhm.
ton at all, but I think in that social setting, it's hard to say no.
Yep.
And it's not that I need it and I never feel good. And I know that it's poison, so those are all um, big reasons not to.
Mhm.
But that's one thing. Yeah, one thing I need to work on is that. And I don't drink much at all. Although I will say that a couple weekends ago, my cousin had a big, huge wedding. It was the first time we were all together, and it was an open bar. And from that point on, you know, after sabotaging myself that night, I thought, I'm going to give it up. I'm going to give it up for a year. So that is my commitment. I'm saying it here now on your podcast. I haven't had a drink since then. I think it was May 6th, and I'm just not going to do it. So
You got it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Great commitment. I'll hold you to it.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I need that.
Yeah,
No,
you can definitely do
I
it.
don't. I can. I mean, it's no big deal, to be honest. But I just think it's easier putting that out there and saying, no, I'm not going to. I'm making a commitment to myself for a year that I'm not going to drink. I think it's easier when I'm getting into those situations. Oh, you know, we're gonna just have a drink with dinner or whatever. It's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I think it's really important how you say it, right? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm trying not to drink." It's like, you're kind of implying you might fail. Like you're kind of implying you kind of do want to drink, but you're trying not to, right?
Yes.
So
yes,
saying like
exactly.
you're
Words
making
matter.
that commitment. Yes, saying you're making that commitment. You're choosing not to. That's very important.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
And so for me, like I know like just my thoughts, like what I told myself, like I was always like scared of public speaking. Like we kind of talked about, like you were, you know, the same way. And I was just because I was just so negative with my thoughts, like it just always beating myself down, telling myself I'm not good enough with them. And once I started to change that, you know, obviously now I'm doing my podcast. It's been big change. I got I'm enough behind me. If you can kind of glare it up, can't see it that well, but you know, I have like all these positive messages around me. I do the affirmations. Have you been doing the same thing, putting those into your life?
Yes, definitely. I mean, so, you know, I thought I was on this amazing health journey and I was successful with it. But then going through Jason Christoph's coaching certification program really kind of propelled me further. And in terms of repetitive, positive content, you know, so we're inundated with constant negative content, whether we're aware of it or not. You know, now as coaches and as awake people, we can see how deliberate it is. But we also need to really make an effort to program ourselves with repetitive content in our environment, what we're taking in our homes, what we're doing deliberately. So in terms of healthy habits and that kind of thing. So I love how that program and me as a coach, what I offer to my clients in terms of how to really switch that negative programming that they may not even be aware of, you know, they may not even be conscious of, and switch that into positive reinforcement, positive environmental cues, positive messaging, self-talk, the affirmations, and just those healthy, establishing those healthy habits. And I think back even to my health journey. I mean, when I was, you know, trying to figure out the answers for you know, to get healthier, it was just constant repetitive content that I was exposing myself to. And so I think that was part of it, that, you know, I just wanted to learn and learn and learn and learn. And that really helped me to reprogram my mind and solidify a lot of information and knowledge that I was accumulating. I think it's super powerful, you know, all that repetitive content. And so we just have to be really deliberate about it. We have to put in the effort because no one else is going to. That's not how society is set up. In fact, it's the opposite.
Yep, I completely agree with that. And you know, it's constant barrage of just information, right? We've probably all of us have heard of like subliminal messages, right? And on some level, there's some kind of messages going through your conscious mind. You can't pick up on it. And I think people understand that advertisements work, but at the same time, they want to say, oh, they don't work on me. There's no way, right? Like these are just whatever. Like they can't influence me to do anything. But then you start to watch like mentalists like Darren Brown or Max Major or someone like that, and you're just like, what? And it's interesting because they have shows, but the majority of people who watch the shows don't actually put it together. So I think, you know, the information that Jason has taught us is really important to be able to like actually like, this is how we're being influenced. Like that's why I love it, because you know there's a lot of like coaches out there, and not to knock on any other like coaches or anything, but like a lot of like therapies or things like that, they kind of don't give the people like that they're helping like the information so they can do it themselves, right? They become like reliant on the other person. And that's what I really love about like what we teach, what Jason taught us to teach, you know, the self-sabotage information is like, it's like empowering, right? You learn how to become like your own master of the mind, the subconscious mind, and you learn how to like identify these different, you know, influences in your life and how to cut them out and how to actually replace them. And I think that's just so powerful. I love that.
Yeah, and that I think is what makes this program so different because first of all, we're teaching our clients how the mind works, you know, and educating them about it because no one else has.
Mm.
And then it's about the tools and the material and the resources that we're providing them to empower. I know that this word keeps coming up, but it truly is about self-empowerment. It's like being aware, being educated, recognizing what it is for what it is, and then being able to be deliberate in terms of using these amazing tools and resources to reprogram your life, your mind for the better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what sets it apart. And so you're right. It's not about the coach. It's not about the therapist doing the work. It's about letting your client know the information so that they can make the change with the tools that we're providing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful. I love that. Just like then you have the power to go out and change your like, as like with self-sabotage, it's not like, oh, I learned the information, it's gone. Like self-sabotage is just gone, right? Like it's something you have to be aware of and you have to be constantly like, it's about, that's why it's not about perfection, it's about progression, right? It's about continually moving forward, continually like, hey, so just like you are, right? Like identifying, hey, maybe I should stop drinking alcohol too. You know, there's certain instances in my life, like marijuana was a really hard thing for me to give up. You know, I was smoked not long ago on a vacation, and I realized, you know, it does hold me back. I was abusing it, and I was smoking every single day. And it's just starting to realize maybe this thing's not the best for me. Maybe this thing is holding me back, right? And then starting to take steps and just addressing one thing at a time and becoming better and better. And the best thing is that you have the tools, right? Like after my coaching sessions with Jason, I haven't had to go back. You know, sure, I'm still learning information from him because he's just an amazing resource of information. But like with what he provided me, I could literally go forward in life and just continue changing my life like on a fundamental level. And that's why I'm so surprised this information is not taught in schools. Well, I'm surprised, but at the same time, I'm not surprised knowing what we know about society and what the whole system set up. But like, in my opinion, this information should be taught to everyone, like when they're in middle school, maybe even elementary school. I don't know. Maybe that's a little too early, but you know, it's just fundamental.
Well, yeah. And I think maybe, you know, even if it's repetitive positive programming, you know, like just building people up, you know, like even I think back to, you know, my role as a mother and how, you know, there were certain instances where, you know, I question, I'm like, oh, geez, you know, that probably wasn't the best way to go about it. Like, what kind of damage have I done to my boys? You know, and I just mean we can all improve. And now that I'm awake and aware and realize how much repetitive content is fundamental in forming our subconscious mind and and how powerful it is in terms of our thoughts and behaviors, because our subconscious mind controls 95%, is responsible for 95% of our thoughts and behaviors. You know, it's like, oh, you know, I wish you know, and I don't want to take I don't regret my I don't regret my parenting, but I think it could have been better knowing what I know now in terms of just positivity, you know, positive recognition constantly. Because you know, I remember there was some times where it's like you don't want to coddle them too much, you know, you don't want to, but it's like, no, when they're young, it should be just constant reassurance, constant recognition to build someone up, you know, and so they're not doubting themselves. They don't have this negative belief system.
Yep. Yeah, that's so powerful. I think it'd be a much different world if that was the case, right? Like, and if, well, I mean, if we didn't have all these negative influences from around, um, then we wouldn't be drawn down the same path, right? Knowing that we know about the subconscious mind is like we're following this the path of other, you know, society essentially, right? Like, so, and that's why I think it's awesome that we learn this information, we're sharing with more people, because the more people that know this information, the more that society is going to start changing, right? And then the more other people are going to start influencing, taking the same actions, right? Like I've noticed people in my life, just like, you talked about at the beginning, you can't force people to learn this information, but you could be the example, you could be the role model, and other people will start to be like, whoa, they're doing something. I might want to learn a little bit more. And they start asking questions, and then you can, they'll start taking, like, some of my family members, they're starting to eat more organic. They're starting to be more healthy, right? They're starting to, like, my brother doesn't drink at all anymore. He cut that out. And it's like, it's awesome being able to see that progress and to see people making those changes. And it all starts with us, right? It all starts first. You help yourself first. You get that help, and a lot of times it requires asking for help. Like, I know if I didn't ask for help, I don't know. I think I probably wouldn't be exactly where I am now. I'd be pretty far back. Maybe even just went back to my old habits. What about you? Do you think if you would have reached out for help?
So I mean, I didn't reach out to anyone but myself. I was really kind of digging in, and trying to find the answers for myself, at least when I was concerned about my own health and those physical symptoms that were kind of screaming at me. But and so I think trusting your intuition is super important, but I do think that we need to take it on ourselves to dig in and find out the information. It's not always going to be kind of given to us on a silver platter. It's really about, listening to our bodies, finding out, listening to our bodies and really understanding what it's trying to tell us, and doing the work in terms of digging in to find what works, and there's trial and error. Again, it's baby steps. It's all about progress, not perfection. And I love what you said about modeling the behavior. I think, especially in our awake community, Jason has said this recently in interviews, the best thing that we can do for this massive awakening is to really do the work on ourselves and, become the healthiest versions of ourselves that we can be. And that is modeling the behavior. So it's not just talking the talk, it's walking the walk. And especially for the generation, I know you have I believe a 1-year-old son. I've got 2 sons. It really is about modeling that behavior. So while, I didn't wake up and I wasn't conscious of, what I was eating and how bad it was for me. I am now, and I'm, they see the transformation I've made. They're also feeling better about themselves and what they're eating. So I think it's super powerful. Modeling that behavior is super powerful.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And your kids are still going to have amazing benefits just from learning this information. Like, you can always reprogram, and you can always, overcome the past programming. Doesn't matter how old you are, right? Like, you could be 80 years old, you could still reprogram.
Yeah, I love that. You're right. Because I think people get overwhelmed too, and they think of painful past, they think of trauma in their past. And it's like, okay, that happened, but there's so much that you can empower yourself and inspire yourself with to go forward. And these are the tools, and this is what, this is how you can overcome that. So, it's looking back and recognizing that those things happen, but then it's also realizing that you have power and control over your life to change that story and to focus on the here and the now, and then looking at the long-term, your long-term goals, your long-term solutions, and really making a plan for that. And then it's not too late. You're right. I think it's super important that, this information is so powerful that people can change their lives here and now. And change the trajectory of their lives, the outcome, it's good.
Yeah. And I often marvel just how strong the human body is. Like, going back to, like, our health talk, you talked about, you didn't even have to do a detox, right? You just started eating healthier and your body just naturally detoxed. And just, like, when you start to realize just, like, how much poison is being pushed on us, like, the fact that we're all, like, the majority of the population is still alive, I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. And then you start to realize just how strong our bodies are, right? So, like, that just reinforces further, like, there is no, like, too late, right? Like, you can always start to make differences. make different choices in your life, and you will start to see major changes, right? You will start to notice major things if you start to take out the negative, like you've been talking about, and replacing it with positive. So yeah, I love that. I love this conversation we've had. Um,
Me too.
with a big part of it is also like just like a big source of like, programming is television and stuff like that. Do you watch a lot of television? Have you started cut back on that? What does that look like?
I have no patience for the television. I have no patience for movies, or I never, even yeah, that's been quite a while though. It's
Okay.
even before I went through the self-sabotage coaching.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I guess I was into a couple series, but that was years ago, and I now I don't have any patience for it. I mean, it's not something that I'm interested in. It's not something I want to devote and waste my time into. I'm trying to launch my business. I'm trying to figure out what's going on in this clown world, and there's just, I just feel it's a deliberate distraction for people. And yeah, I know I don't want any part of it. Even professional sports, because sometimes that's on, the boys are watching, and I just feel like that's all a big distraction.
yeah.
It's all on purpose. And I have no desire really to get into any of that.
Well, maybe that's why you woke up so much quicker than some
Maybe.
people, because you weren't getting programmed so hardcore by the TV.
Yeah. 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 That's true.
That's definitely a big source of it, right?
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I mean, overall, I think we've had a great talk. We talked. Is there anything else you want to share about your story, or?
Um, no, I mean, I would just say I am launching my website within the next week or two. It'll be at bethblackmore.com. I have secured that domain. So check that out. And I'm working with clients now, and we go back to talking about baby steps. I've got a client right now who, just from our discovery call and watching, a lot of my valuable information that I'm putting on social media, has shed 15 pounds.
Awesome.
And Tanner, she hasn't even submitted the questionnaire to me yet. So we haven't even started the formal coaching program.
Wow.
But she's super keen. This is like an ideal client. She's ready for this. And I just feel so, so blessed that, she trusts me to be able to go through this program with her, and that she is already seeing results just from the information that I am sharing pretty much for free, on social media, like we all are. Like we all want to help, right? We all want to empower humanity. We all want to wake people up. She's definitely an awakened soul. And she was saying, I'm losing weight, I'm doing this, but I still have this vice, I still have that vice. And I'm like, that's okay. You don't have to do everything all at once. Look at the gains you've made.
Yep.
It's incredible. It's incredible already, her transformation. And she's just wanting to give more and more. But anyway, so yeah, I love this program. I mean, I feel like, this is what I was meant to do. I'm super passionate about it. I feel like because I've gone through my own health journey, my own awakening, Jason's self-sabotaging coaching program, I feel very blessed that I'm in this situation now, and helping others out of the system.
Yeah.
Out of the system.
Yeah, I love that you were able to. It's awesome that you were in the system and you were able to break free from it, and you got to where you are now. It's an amazing change. And yeah, and anyone who is listening, if you're just interested in learning more about self-sabotage, and you vibed with Beth's story, then definitely reach out to her. I'll have her links down below so you guys can access. And hopefully by the time this gets released, your website will be released. But if not, then I'll also have the link in there just so they can get it. And make sure you guys follow her on Facebook and all of her other social media, because she does have some great content. I enjoy seeing it. And then one quick last thing I like to ask everyone who comes on the podcast. So for anyone, let's just say, because you went through the weight loss journey, for anyone who's going through that weight loss journey, who's just, really focused on the weight, and they're feeling really bad about themselves. Maybe they have some extra pounds. And they've tried multiple different things, all the diets and everything like that. And there's nothing's working, or they keep telling themselves they want to eat healthier, and they sabotage that progress. what advice might you give them?
I would give them advice that they are in control of their health, that, you know, discipline and consistency is key, that, you know, even I would really start repetitive content in terms of either listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, you know, in terms of people that you trust as health, you know, health advisors, health gurus. I would really tune into that content repetitively. And because that's what we need to do. I mean, it's really all about repetitive content to get the conditioning out of our minds that we can't do it, or that you have these cravings. You know, it's really replacing that negative content with the positive content, and just kind of berating yourself with it, knowing that you are going to feel better. You will start to feel better very quickly after you ditch the shitty food and the ultra processed foods. You know, and that alone, you know, when you start seeing that change, that can be motivation enough for somebody, let alone they're losing weight. But just the fact that you're feeling better, and that's maybe after even just a couple of days of water retention that's leaving your body, you're detoxing, you know, that's what's happening there. So I would just say, you know, consistency, really the repetitive programming, repetitive content of positive, healthy advice that you trust, and just keep at it, because it will come. You can do it, and you're in control of your health.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. And I think it's really important that you mentioned, like, just focus on, you know, taking the healthy actions, right? Like, some people are focused just like on the weight and the scale. Like in your story, you know, you said you don't even look at the scale, right? Because that's just like, that's something we can't control, right? We can't control our weight, but we can control the actions we take every day.
Yes.
And so I think that's an awesome part of your story, is just like you were able to focus on the actions you took every day and you saw results, right? So,
Exactly.
And that's control the controllables, and then don't worry about what's you can't control. Everything else will come in line. Your weight will get to the perfect body weight when you start to just focus on your health. So I love that, Beth. I love your story. Everyone, make sure you guys do check out her links. Like I said, she has some great content, and don't hesitate to reach out if you guys are interested in working with Beth. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Beth. It was a great talk.
Thank you so much, Tanner. Great to connect with you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.